Hey, welcome back again. Let's pull out the agency disclosure forms, or as it's titled, you can see here, disclosure regarding real estate agency relationships. Let me start by simply saying this form is required, and by law, we are to disclose our relationship to any and all parties prior to receiving or having disclosed to us confidential information. Prior to the exchange of any confidential information, we are to disclose in writing with a signature whom we represent. So, knowing that, here's what we can see. This is from the left over here, a 3-page document. The first page simply describes really what we are supposed to do. For any residential property of 1 to 4 units, residential dwelling that has a building on it, we have to disclose. Okay? Now, what I'm going to tell you is if you're doing residential property, disclose to everyone. But 1 to 4 family units, residential dwellings, we must disclose our agency relationship. So in short, that's what this is saying. When I get to the point of a seller's agent, you guys know what a seller's agent is. We are either a seller's agent or we are a buyer's agent. We are a company that will allow dual agency. Later on, you're going to be learning about agency again outside of what you've already learned as you've completed pre-license training. But what I want you to know is simply that you as an individual, the only time you'll be practicing dual agency is when you have represented a seller and you have, or proper term, you are representing the buyer. You are representing the seller. You are representing the buyer in the same transaction. Now, we'll call it exceptions to that very black and white description I just gave you. But know that it is the time is when you, as an individual, represent 2 or more parties to the same transaction. All right? We'll talk more about that later on. A transaction coordinator in simplest terms is, as it puts someone here, a licensee who is not acting as an agent of either the seller or the buyer. You don't have an agency relationship. You don't represent either one of them. It is my opinion, this is a rare situation because as human beings, we're very likely to represent someone. We just need to make sure that we know who that is and that we take care of that. If you ever think that you have to do something either outside of being a seller's agent or a buyer's agent, where you think you might need to be a transaction coordinator, you need to be talking with your manager. Now, let's look at this thing called designated agency. You are a member of a multi-office company, and because of that, we have decided, and we do practice what is called designated agency. What you should have learned is that, in simplest terms, our broker, C21, appointed us to represent this seller or this buyer. You have been designated to represent this buyer or this seller. You've been designated. Nobody had to actually appoint you. You're going out, you're getting the business. You are designated. So in simplest terms, you'll notice that when we come down to this part, that it's already checked off. I would hope that it is. If not, just know it's always checked. This box is always checked. and it says check here acting as a designated agent. I'm going to keep it simple, guys. You are. You're a designated agent. Always checked. At the top, here's what I'll tell you. If you are representing a seller, this is checked. If you are representing a buyer, this is checked. We don't practice limited services. We don't practice it. If you ever think that you've got to check this or this, same as you think you've got to check this or this, you need to be talking with your manager. The only other that you might check off on this is that a dual agent. And yet, following agency law, make sure that we are redisclosing when this occurs, because essentially we should have already been representing one of these two parties, and thus when they come together, our agency has changed and we now have to disclose we are in a dual agency situation. From there, gang, we slip down to the bottom. We're going to sign, and if we have two of us, co-lister, co-seller, we would have the other agent sign. Now, case like mine, I work with my wife, who's a licensed real estate agent. We both have to sign. We are both designated to represent the buyers or the sellers we work with. Now, I want you to catch this. This is not a contract. I'm going to keep simple in regards to agency, but just know this is not a contract. What we know from the first page, it's a disclosure, and that's all it is. From there, it says the undersigned either does or does not have an agency relationship with any other real estate licensee. Let me read that again. The undersigned does or does not have an agency relationship with any other real estate licensee. What we're doing is making sure that it's okay for us to go ahead and move forward putting this individual under contract. Let me give you a good scenario that could happen and is likely in your career. I say, do you have an agency relationship? Have you been working or signed a contract with any other agent anywhere in the state of Michigan? And they say, well, yeah, we do. I go, well, great. What have you done? Otherwise, see here, if an agency relationship exists, the undersigned is represented as. They say, well, Darwin, you remember that we've got our house on the market up in Cadillac, and that's listed with, well, they are represented and have a contract with an agent as a seller. That allows us to represent them, as we would have disclosed here, as a buyer's agent. It's simply saying, let's get the acknowledgement that it's okay for us to go ahead and sign a contract with this individual. At that point, they sign, and we have a completed agency disclosure. So there you have it. Your agency disclosure statement there for both buyers and sellers. Gets done the same way either way. You guys have a great one. Be productive. Go talk to people.